All right, folks, welcome on back here this Tuesday, April 27th. I was tripping up my month there. Welcome on back here for our afternoon meeting. As always, today being Tuesday, we have our Traders Talk workshop, which we had just completed live inside our cyber group room for all of us on the recording and for all of us on social media, Facebook Live and YouTube. Feel more than free to join our live trading room to catch that workshop live every Tuesday morning for all of us there. That's already on the dashboard right on your homepage here on our website. Without further ado, though, let's hop right into the thick of things here because we have this ALDX trade moving up still. I got out of this trade right before we started this meeting. I was trading it all throughout the day. And, to go over this trade really quickly, because we do have class coming up. Fausto's prepping up for the phase 3 stock course, so I got to be quick. But in as little time as I have here, I don't like trading stocks that are as, quote unquote, choppy as this has been throughout the day. We typically look for a nice momentum based pop or drop, a nice clean and quick move. There was news that came out on this trade. We talked about this trade in our Traders Talk workshop before. So we talked about the 1350. We talked about the 1450. And once it broke 1450 here, thankfully it held it as support. Thankfully, it's moving up higher as we speak. But man, it's been a drag. This has been a very cautious move here as it's been slowly grinding on up. I'm not normally a fan of those trades. So with the news that came out on ALDX, it was regarding their phase 3 results for their drug. They ended up achieving primary and all secondary endpoints for phase 3. That's huge news. So that's why I was personally drawn to this trade, because typically off of such a big headline, you'll see a stock make a bigger move than even what it's doing now at 38+%. So I still have high hopes on this stock to see it break out higher. Now, I was jumping in and out of this trade roughly at first I was in from 1350. I took that across the morning. My second trade on this, I did jump in a bit later on. I was being very hesitant. So I have to say I'm fortunate with the trades I took. I easily could have been stopped out and then re-entered. I was perfect across the day on this stock. It was pretty interesting. I jumped back in on this trade when it ended up re-breaking above 1430. It was roughly within this consolidation. So it wasn't perfect. It wasn't too pretty right off the bat, but it got the job done. It ended up squeezing on up from that level. And at least as of now, I closed out my last trade. I was in from $14.93. There were a couple of larger icebergs that were on the ask a bit earlier, and you would assume one of those to be at 15. A whole number price like $15 to be a major resistance. But also at the same time, $14.91 just randomly. It's not really the price that we would imagine for there to be a huge iceberg. There was just as equally big of an order at $14.91 as there was at 15. So I treated both as resistance, and once it popped above 15 lastly here, it allowed it to make a new move up. I ended up getting out, though, because I ended up noticing this trend line that was holding pretty well. You could probably draw it from a different peak, but I first had it from this little pop and drop in pre-market. Generally, it held the highs really well across the morning. So loosely speaking, on my last trade just here, I closed out before we started, but I thought it was going to hold that trend line at first. If that was such a big resistance early on, you still have to respect that trend line as a resistance, as a level for right now. So I was doing this not on 1,000 shares. I wish it was 1,000. It was on 500, a half-size position, and that's fine, at least for now, because if this stock isn't my money maker going into the close, then I'm certainly hopeful it'll be something else that we'll talk about very shortly. But for right now, ALDX easily enough. I'll put this on our main watch list just to kick things off. All right, so I guess I really should go from top to bottom now. Fausto, like I had said, he's prepping up for his phase 3 course coming up later today. I know that he was all over this TIRX from earlier today as well, at least after the market opened up. I don't remember his first entry on this. If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm loosely right with this. He was in around 1550. It got halted on the way up. He was in before it got halted, and he stayed in the trade after the reopen, the shake, and the pop back up. And most recently, I remember him telling me just in conversation earlier, he was in roughly around 18. I remember him mentioning. I assume he's out now. I haven't spoken to him in the last 45 minutes. That was from earlier. So you'll have to talk to him in the phase 3 class to see exactly where he ended up closing out on this trade. Nonetheless, though, this TIRX is crazy. To see it drop off as much as it did back in mid-April earlier this month, it was down like 90%. You would wonder, when is this going to squeeze up? And it did provide a couple of days where it did squeeze back from April 16th. Stock ran from 11.10 to 17.50. That's a pretty good move. The days after, it died off. So we're not swing trading this. We're not investing in TIRX. But it's to say, though, if the stock gives us another good opportunity for a day trade, for a pop, for a dead cat bounce, as we would call it, then we'll try and take advantage of that opportunity. So, this was a nice trade from earlier today, from the morning, from the early afternoon. It's still really volatile, which we like at this time of the day. But after this last drop off, it doesn't look too good now, at least for another big move back up. I'll kind of keep this on our side list. Maybe I'll jump back to it at the tail end if it ends up making some big pop. All right, but now at this point, we'll just go from top to bottom. Really, the RIBT number 3% gainer, not so much for the afternoon, pretty much same as the TIRX. This was much less volatile, but ended up making a pretty big move. Popped after the market opened from roughly 110, 111-ish, and then squeezed all the way up towards 180-ish. So you normally don't find a stock making that big of a move in that short amount of time, and for those that do happen to do that, they typically end up falling off quicker. So no surprise here that this ended up kind of popping up fast, dropping back, and consolidated. But then it broke lower, and we know what happens after that. Man, this VXRT, my day was really good. Actually, the last few days, I have to say, knock on wood so I don't mess it up later, but I had a pretty good morning today. We talked about a couple of those trades. I talked about the ALDX a moment ago. I'm in currently on one other stock, and I'll talk about that if we have the chance to get to it. But man, I missed this whole VXRT run up from earlier today just because I was focused on others. So for anyone that jumped in with Fausto in the phase 3 course, you guys hit it big on this trade. I mean, we called this out a little bit after the market opened up, not right out the gate, but this VXRT stock is one that we do really well on off of news, off of vaccine news across the last, year and a half or year plus, ended up making a big move for us. So, whenever we happen to see the stock on the gainers or losers list, we'll definitely follow up on it more. And thankfully today, this made as big of a move as we could possibly ask for. Ended up, even after the drop back here, ended up building a new low or higher low and squeezed up higher. I ended up getting myself into a small rut earlier. So really quick, folks, not this year, thankfully, but actually, it was Fausto that mentioned briefly VXRT moving back up to the highs, as it was. It failed to break out above resistance off of $9.50. So I'm not going to buy underneath resistance, but holy smokes, this thing ended up dropping, like $1 in 4 or 5 minutes? I thought news came out. So as this dropped, I was just being more, you could say reckless, definitely more less risk adverse in this trade. I ended up jumping in on 2 positions. I had to average down. It ended up getting me filled at $8.40, and then it dropped off a hell of a lot more. I was pretty nervous for this thing to really crap out. I'm pretty thankful to say I walked away with a 4-cent or 3-cent loss right before we started the meeting. Actually, I closed out as it was squeezing back up towards 8.35, 8.34. I survived one pretty quickly, or pretty luckily, I should say. For the afternoon, hey, we love the volatility. It's just that this stock is trading almost 200 million shares. I'm sure it has, a decent float, but 108 million share float and trades millions of shares a day. So I could easily put this on our list at the end of it all. And I like this more than the TIRX stock, VXRT this is. I'll keep this on the side. If we don't really have too big of a list by the end of it all, I'll likely throw this on there. All right, so we keep it moving, though, in the meantime. Again, we have a few other familiar names here. BTX. Oh, my goodness. If you don't remember this BTX, you should, just looking at the daily chart. I don't know what happened here dating back to November all the way to March, but ended up making a huge squeeze up afterwards, and then day over day, practically, we've been following this. Again, not as much as a swing trade. We're primarily making our call-outs as day trades here. So, hey, if anyone jumped in on the swing, obviously, you're looking really good. For the close today, hey, it's pushing up nicely, but it's got a huge spread. So I'm not a fan of that. I'll put this on our list for right now, given the recent afternoon, push and volume coming in here. But this is a level 5 stock if I've seen one. So, look yourself in the mirror here for all of our students live inside Cyber Group. And I really mean that. If you find yourself to be more of a level 1 to 2 trader, probably shouldn't focus on this one then. So, for our more advanced, experienced students, we'll put this on our list for you folks later. There we go, on a smaller position size, which is fine. She picked up 43 cents, got in from $22.45, I think, or maybe that was her exit. She got in likely off the 22 level, if I'm not mistaken there. All right, cool. All right, so we'll keep it moving for right now. BTX, we'll put on our list this EEIQ. Not as much now, huh? This ended up making a nice push earlier today. Up later, correcting herself. She was in at 2202. All right, either way, Leda, I appreciate you correcting that. Nice entry right over the whole number price. But, this EEIQ stock, it's another one like TIRX. I mean, I guess this is a new IPO or direct listing, whatever it is. Ended up getting crushed right away afterwards. And I'm sure this will make another squeeze back up. It already made a big move today. I don't think it's as likely to make a second big move heading into this close, but keep an eye on it. Tomorrow, next week, you name it. I thought today was Thursday. Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, next week, etc. Keep an eye on this stock, perhaps early in pre-market. If there's a lot of activity, then we'll follow up with it more then. All right, so Norman was calling out this MUD stock, not the warrants, but the regular MUDs. Ended up making this huge move from the late morning, the early afternoon, really, kind of low volume, but the stock had squeezed up nicely afterwards. The spreads are pretty well managed. The order book, that is, I mean, you don't really have too big orders on there, but they're not too scarce. I like this stock a lot, this MUDs trade. I'll put this on the top of our list here. We only have 3 stocks on there, but MUDs will be on the top here to begin so far. Looks pretty healthy on the way up towards the high of the day off 1630. Really quickly before I move on. Yep, all-time highs too. Like real all-time highs. No historical data to work off of on this trade. You can just go back on the daily chart just to see that there, right? So even further of a reason as to why we like this MUDs trade. I had one of our students, Scott, calling out this EBET stock, right? New IPO too. And at the time, it was pushing up. So you can't knock him for saying it was pushing up. But this thing has such an ugly spread, it ain't worth it. There's just so much better opportunity than this EBET stock in terms of the order book, the liquidity. So just be a lot more mindful for that than anything else. I'd much rather trade a stock that has a liquid order book that's making not necessarily the biggest, craziest, most grand pop. I'd rather trade something that's easier to trade. You know what I mean? All right. What else we got here on the gainer side here? The SPY is up a little bit, like really flat across the afternoon or day, and starting to squeak up the last 15 or so minutes. Let's sit on the gainer side. Really, in terms of familiar names, if there's anything that you see that looks great on the gainers end, then let me know. Type it in the chat board. I'll hop over to the losers list. I'm in one other trade right now that is not doing a whole lot. I'm up 9 cents on it, which is good. I'll jump to that probably at the end. It's not on either the gainers or losers list. RWLK or RNWK, I'm sorry. At the lows, it's just so flat right now. I mean, we normally would appreciate seeing a stock like this at the low of the day, but it's just so flat. Keep it on your side list for right now. And that leads me to Mavis here, MVIS. So I know Ken's looking for me to go over this trade. I'm not going to do the Traders Talk edition version of it, but you could see at least from the last 2 days, for as much as it squeezed up, you'd like to think eventually it's going to come back down. Like that's just a general comment to make. But damn, this thing ended up coming back down so hard. It ended up actually breaking lower from where it had opened up yesterday. So a lot of that move came early in pre-market. So it's really not a surprise to see this stock where it is now, given the volume and sell-off that we had here in pre-market. So it's just to say simply after the market opened up, yeah, this popped up a little bit at first, like I think for like a couple minutes. But man, once this rebroke the support level that it previously broke under here in pre-market off 27, that's a wrap. That is a wrap. So from there, it ended up dropping off a beautiful short position from 27 all the way down. I mean, at least to 22, a 5-point drop. And, it's just near the lows right now. It's a familiar name, so we'll definitely keep this in mind. I'll put this on our main list. My gripe on this trade is what my gripe would be for any stock looking like this now, and not in terms of the chart. Look at the volume traded. 142 million shares total across the day today. Prior to the last few trading days, the stock's trading 13 million shares, which is definitely a lot for what we would, scan for, watch for. This has always been a side list stock. I just think comparative to what it's typically traded prior to the last few days, it's pretty exhausted. I'm sure it has a high float. We'll put this on our list still at this point, but if it doesn't make a big move heading into the afternoon, just don't be surprised by that. Looks like it's kind of holding under 20 here briefly. So we'll see what it does off the 20 level. If it ends up making another pop back over it, you might happen to see a short squeeze up higher for maybe a point or two. If it ends up breaking back under 20 and holds under there again, then I would expect further continuation on the way down. All right, that was a mouthful. Let's keep it going though, folks. Current time, 2:45. I'm going to finish up quick. SJ from yesterday. Got a friend Mitch Connor on YouTube asking about UAVS, which we'll get to in just a second there, Mitch. Great to see you once again, though, on YouTube Live. XXII today. I mean, from yesterday, or really back from Friday last week, ended up making a big pop. And then yesterday, the pullback. And I guess further drop off today. It's a good side list stock. Keep this in mind for remainder of this week and next. It's typically a slower mover. So if it continues to drop off in terms of the volume traded per day, it will only get slower and you take it off your side list. But, for tomorrow and for another day, I'll check in to see what this stock does, at least in pre-market. All right, so that's all I got across both ends, folks. We'll check out Mitch's UAVS. Oof, that is pushing up very nicely here. So UAVS has been another side list stock. I think we called this out yesterday afternoon, just smack in the middle of the meeting. Or was it the day? Yeah, it was the day before. So back on Friday last week, for those of us that were with me live there, you folks should recall this. I was going ballistic because there were like 12 or 13 stocks already on our watch list. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, for no news given, this stock ended up making a huge pop like right in front of us. It's funny how history repeats itself there, Mitch, right? Ended up making another big move right around the same time. Hey, we'll take it. UAVS, just checking Benzinga Pro. There's like no news posts on this again. Doesn't need to be news for us to try and capitalize on this trade. I mean, hey, we'll look to see if this could pull back down perhaps to a prior, resistance level that it broke out from, maybe get a much bigger discount if it fails to break out higher coming up here pretty shortly. All right, but for right now, UAVS definitely. Oh, actually, I have my book map up for this right now, my level 4. So I could actually bring this up really quick. You could see that there is a lot of volume getting filled on the way up, as you would expect, but specific right here, 632, a 53,000 share print that's roughly filled off that price. 632, 638, just kind of a lot of buying leading up to there. Of course, it broke out higher and running higher now. But if this ends up pulling back, yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Roughly around 635, 636, 632 even. See that hold as a big support level later on. All right, Mitch, great call there on the UAVS. All right, so I was going to get to AMC just because I'm in it. Not really a whole lot to write home about here. So just to tell you right now, I am short on this trade from 1170. It's actually a double-sized position, 2,000 shares on this one. I did take a 4 or 5 cent loss on this earlier going into the afternoon. I didn't even call this one out as much going into the afternoon meeting from our cyber group room. There wasn't really a whole lot to write home about. It was a good side list stock. I was waiting for the sell-off early this morning as it were to break down below 1170 and ended up making this crazy slingshot back over it. Just a matter of waiting for history to repeat itself. So I took a dinky 5 or 4 cent loss here. Then I re-entered on the re-break on double position. So I'm currently short on this trade for right now. I mean, hey, for any of our students inside Cyber Group, if you want to follow this, go ahead. I'll tell you how I do on it. I'm certainly going to update you over the next hour as far as what I do on this stock. If it ends up dropping off more towards the 1150 and retesting that, or if it ends up, peeping back up a bit, I'll tell you how I do on that. For right now, we're not going to put this on our main special list. Not a whole lot really happening otherwise. I'd much rather focus on VXRT if we're being honest. I have a good entry, at least on AMC, so I'm going to hold into that for right now. Yeah, we don't have too big of a list. VXRT is still pretty volatile. If Fausto was doing this meeting, I don't know if he would have put VXRT on the main list himself, but That's the very tiny differences between myself and Fausto. He really does an excellent job of just consolidation, keeping it simple and right to the point. Whereas myself, at times, and more so here heading into the afternoon, I'll tend to see the opportunity a bit more in some of these stocks. So I'll tend to pump out a bit bigger of a list. And from there, for all of us live on YouTube and Facebook Live, and for all of us in the cyber group room, you folks should know at this point, hey, try and chop this list down to a group of 2 or 3 that you personally feel pretty comfortable following. And we work together as a team, then see what the best one is going into the final hour, see if we can all jump in on it. All right, so for all of us on YouTube and Facebook Live, let me know if there's anything else that you would want me to look at. Up, down, left, right, more than 5%. That goes, of course, for all of us live inside Cyber Group. Just checking Benzinga Pro very quickly beforehand. Got that UAVS popping up there from Mitch. Once again, really good call. That's it. That's all I got. Going to check out the ALDX again. Look at this. This thing's still pushing. It's on the way up to 16. 50,000 share order on the ask, sitting at 16 bucks. So, hey, I mean, well, this is all this is basically all we could ask for heading into the afternoon. That's what I was looking to say. Just to have a runner like this at the highs, approaching a major resistance at 16. Hey, this is all we could ask for, right? And we don't even just have that. We have the Mudge trade here too. So between both of those, I think that we're setting ourselves up for a pretty exciting afternoon. And then outside of this list in general, hey, if there's anything else that pops or drops, makes a big move into the next hour ahead, we'll look to work together as a team, call it out live inside our Cyber Group trading room. All right, for all of us on social media, Facebook Live and YouTube, I appreciate you joining us once again here for this afternoon meeting. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and notify. Just hit the bell icon right there on YouTube, that being youtube.com/cybertradingu. That'll give you a good ability to know when we're going live, when we're not. And then for all of us there right now, just give me a quick moment. I know that Rich is going to jump on the audio himself. For all of us that have access to the Phase 3 stock course, I know that Rich also just posted that link for you to click on just to get access to that class. If you are joining Fausto in the Phase 3 course, folks, I would not suggest for you to be live inside this room. It would not make sense for you to try and listen to both of us talking at the same time. That doesn't really help you too much. So for any of our gold, platinum, diamond students, please make sure that you click that link to join Fausto in the Phase 3 course. And for those of you that don't have access to that class, no sweat. I know, Rich will be on the mic very shortly, and I'll be taking you folks into the market close once I'm back on at 3:30. All right, I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.